We are going to have an interview with a psychologist. I'm going to read her profile. She's a very accomplished person. She's got a very big profile, so I really want to read it from here. So today we have the psychologist Dr. Hemalatha Swaminathan. With a doctorate from the California Institute of Integral Studies and a double master's in organizational psychology and counseling psychology, she has traveled extensively facilitating behavioral training programs in organizational behavior and psychology for esteemed corporate clients. She founded 4S Within in 2008. Art heals is my belief, she says. She is also a creative art therapist. Being from a dance and theatre background, she has always been passionate about art and its ability to connect to the deeper conscious. She has developed life-enhancing programs that positively impacted over 5,000 participants, improving engagement and well-being across organizations. Self-love is a lot to do with the mind, and who better can we hear from than the psychologist herself? To introduce the psychologist, I will have our friend Sunitha on the stage. Please put your hands together to invite Dr. Hemalatha.
Okay, I know everyone's getting a bit restless, you want your tea and your coffee, but I promise you like an exciting conversation, although it's a very deep matter, but let alone, we will talk a little bit about what prevents you from loving yourself, right? I could probably write a very long list. So I think maybe an apt place to start this conversation, Hemalatha, that's okay with you, is to ask, what does self-love mean to you? And I know we've talked a lot about it this evening, but I've been talking about self-love for almost 5 years now, and I always find there's a new view. Between the four of us, me, Gayatri, Shiva, and Latha, we spend eons of time. And there's never a point where we come to an answer, and there's never a point where I think, oh yeah, I know it all, or they know it all. So I think this is a conversation to be had. It's always interesting to have different perspectives. And this is an opportunity now for the next 15 minutes to talk yet more about what's really preventing yourself from loving yourself. So Hemalatha, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm really looking forward to tapping into all of your experience. And like I said, maybe an apt place to start would be to wonder, what does self-love mean to you?
Thank you, Sunitha. Thank you, Sunitha, and for asking me this question. I think it's been a long evening. You must have heard a lot of things about self-love. I had a lot of takeaways too from there. The question that you asked, right, like what does self-love mean to me? I think what it means to me is self-discipline. So if you love yourself, you're not going to give up on some things that you have to do for yourself, right? So I always tell my clients, have at least 3 come what may habits, right? Like you may have anybody in your life, you may have any circumstance that happens, but do not give up on 3 come what may habits, right? That can be just telling yourself, like, come what may, I am going to start my day with a walk, right? Or it can be as simple as saying, come what may, I am going to sleep on time, right? So ensure that you have this simple discipline for yourself and say that if I love myself, I am not going to give up on these 3 things. So I think that's something you can think about if you like it, to say, okay, what are my 3 come what may habits?
Lovely. I like the idea of just micro actions, which I want to come back to. When I think about self-love, really I got introduced to the topic only a couple of years ago when Shiva was talking about it. And the biggest challenge I had was about defining it. And now I say to myself, self-love is what I would say to my best friend. Right? So when I feel tired and my best friend, or when my best friend feels tired and she calls me, I'd be like, you know what, chill out, take a rest, right? Or my best friend calls me and says, Sunitha, I've had a really tough day, I've done so many things, I still have one more thing to do. I'd be like, forget it, do it in the morning. And so my personal challenge for me has been, how to talk to myself as my best friend. And I will just add a little personal note to that is, I grew up with a mother. She had a very severe psychiatric illness. She had bipolar disease, which meant that she was quite harsh on me. And so it took me years to find my voice, because the voice in my head was my mother's voice. And, you know, she, as an adult, I know she was sick and I can deal with that. But as a child, I had somebody who was not saying nice things to me. And, you know, honestly, now that I've spoken to a lot of people, I know that, you know, parents in the term of love, they do speak harshly to you. You know, they say some severe things. And so my question to you is, how do you change that tone? How do you become softer and kinder to yourself?
Okay, to answer that, is it okay if we kind of do a small exercise?
Sure,
Is that okay?
yeah.
So I would need to stand up for that, and
Please,
I'm comfortable if you're seated.
Yeah.
So she asked me a very important question, right? Like, what comes in the way of self-love? So we've been talking about saying, okay, do this, do that, if you love yourself, draw boundaries and stuff like that. But she brought out something very valid in terms of, okay, what is it that stops us? What has happened that we are not able to love ourselves? So I would just like to invite you to do a small experiential with me. And, you know, you've heard so many things. So maybe take this moment to, whatever you're holding in your hand, just place it next to you. And I invite you to feel comfortable wherever you're sitting. And we will just possibly close our eyes for once. We've been receiving a lot of information through our eyes, our ears, focusing on the stage and the lights for so long. So I'm just going to invite you to close your eyes, keep your hands by your side, allow your chests to breathe deeply. Just get in touch with your breathing. You don't have to change it. Just see how deep you're breathing or how shallow. And just take in a very few deep breaths, allowing your body to completely relax. And as you do this, I want you to recall possibly one difficult situation that you had recently. It could be at work, it could be a personal situation, anything that you came across recently. And I want you to recall, what negative statement did you tell yourself about yourself? Right? It could be something like, I'm not good enough, I didn't do this well. It could be just anything. Just think about it. In that difficult situation, what is the one negative thing that you told yourself about yourself? And now, just try and think about, whose voice is this? Is it really your voice? Or is it a voice that you heard long, long ago from a parent, from a school authority, from someone in a relationship? And as you recall that, today, just tell yourself, this is not my voice. It doesn't have to live in me. Why am I holding on to something that's not mine? And just imagine that you're saying goodbye to that voice. And very slowly, Ask yourself, from today, in a difficult situation, what is it that I want to tell myself? What is my voice? In a difficult relationship, in a difficult moment, how do I want to be there for myself? And that is the voice that you will listen to here on. And with that promise to yourself, I'd like you to slowly open your eyes and come back to this space. And as you do that, just raise your hand, turn it around, and say, good job on finding your voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Hemalatha. You know, that reminds me of a story that I always tell myself, which is, I don't think I really heard my voice till I was about 40. And I called the voice in my head Monica from Friends. Who knows Monica from Friends, right? Always critical, always, no matter how many accolades I had, how many promotions I had. And I love this experience that you gave us, because finally, like at the age of 40, I started practicing yoga, and I recognized it wasn't my voice. And even now, I still have an issue switching off Monica. I can't switch her off. I can lower her tone. And when I lower Monica's tone, I hear my voice. And my voice says, eat one more cake. My voice says, cuddle with your son. My voice says, it's okay, take a rest. It's okay. So I would love to hear from you. This is a wonderful experience. What are maybe just tiny little micro affirmations or micro actions when you are in the middle of that voice being really loud in your head, that you can just slow it down a little bit for yourself?
Yeah, I think thank you for sharing that and saying that you found your voice at 40. The best thing is when you said that, you know, you are able to give that voice a name. It's not my voice, it's Monica's voice, right? I think just recognizing that for yourself is very important, saying that, okay, this is not my voice, right? But also, I'd like to add that this is something that we grow up with, is the lack of appreciation. You know, we are often told, let someone else appreciate you, let someone else say good about you, right? Don't talk too much about yourself, or don't appreciate yourself, right? So I'd like to say the smallest thing that we can do is anything that you do, appreciate yourself. You know, rewrite that conditioning for yourself and say, good job. So we need to make, as much as, you know, you said tone down that voice of Monica, I think it's also important to make our own voice strong. And to do that, I think it's very, very important to appreciate yourself. So raise your right hand and pat yourself every day. Every little thing that you do, say good job, great, right? And that is what will kind of like strengthen your inner voice. And I think the body also plays a huge role in feeling confident, in feeling appreciative. So I would say, listen to your body, which means ensure you're eating on time, ensure you're sleeping on time, ensure you have your physical checks done. You know, do not put things away in terms of saying, oh, it's just sugar, oh, it's just BP, oh, it's this. I loved what the doctor said, right? Like the kind of excuses we make because we are not able to talk about our problems, right? So ensure loving your body is a way of appreciating yourself. So ensure that you are, like someone said, right, in this conference, you are the main character in your story. And
Absolutely, Hemalatha. And you know, my personal journey with self-love sometimes is that I cannot switch that voice off. Like no matter what I try, self-appreciation, it just feels like I'm faking it and it's not working. And so one of the things I've learned to do is just to observe the voice and just know that it's not mine. I can't stop it. I can't lower it. Sometimes it gets louder. I know some people do journaling because that helps just get it out of your system. So I would love to hear from you, like, what are some other things? So Shiva and I talk about this all the time. For her, it's sitting in her garden. That's her Zen time. Of course, I practice my yoga and my pranayama. That seems to help me. What are some other things that you impart to your patients? Again, not big shifts. I love that example of you saying, I want to go for a walk. Something I struggle with. Sometimes I just can't go for my walk. And the more I tell myself, go for my walk, it's not working. So again, I mean, that's the real struggle, right? I would love to hear from you. What do you recommend then?
So I would say this is something I also talk to my clients about is ensure you have a basket of things, right? Like never say, okay, I need to go for a walk, or I have to do this yoga, or I have to do that. I would say go home today and create your own jar of self-love, right? And in that jar, just write down small chits of 10 things, right? Which means go for a walk, sleep, whatever, right? 10 things that work for you, right? Read a book. It can be that. Go for a movie, just 10 beautiful things and put it in that jar. And anytime you feel stuck, anytime you feel like you're in this heat of this, I didn't do and this and that, go pick up a chit from that jar, read it and follow it, right? So that is the jar of self-love, which I think we should keep on our tables and which is readily accessible, because like you said, in that moment you're so frozen that it's like, oh, what do I do from here, right? So that's something I'd like to mention as a small act, as a practice.
Yeah, I love that jar of self-love, because I think often the place we get stuck is when we just have limited options, and when we can have a range of things, maybe some as, and Shubha and I talk about, sometimes it's just take a shower. Sometimes it's just get out of bed. That is a win for you. Decide that that's a win for you and tell yourself that is you loving yourself because you did a micro action. I think again and again, I feel like self-love are not big, bold actions that need to be visible on the outside. They can just be invisible and towards yourself.
And I would say it's not a solo journey. So do not think that you have to fight all the battles on your own. You have to have every day sorted out just by yourself. I would say create accountability partners, create a community that believes in the same thing, and that's what will help you stay on this journey. So have friends who believe in the same thing and encourage you for self-love, and don't kind of like invalidate you when you talk about it and say, oh, that's so selfish and things like that, right? Like, so choose your friends, choose your accountability partners, and you don't have to be on this journey alone.
Yeah, because self-love isn't selfish. And again, I love that you said that, because I think the more we talk to this, especially with our family, and I often find that if you don't love yourself, it now becomes a burden on somebody else. Somebody else has to fill that void for you. And so now someone's in a relationship with you and they now also have to validate you, also have to love you, is a burden. So I would love to hear a little bit, like, where do challenges play out in relationships? When people don't love themselves, how does that play out, again, in your therapeutic experience?
So I would say it's good to be in a relationship with someone who can love themselves first before loving you, right? So I think that answers the question in terms of how do you choose a partner, how do you be with someone, is just to know that they can love themselves, because you can never pour from an empty cup. And if they are not able to love themselves enough, they're not going to be able to offer it to you. Don't take on this battle of, I will change them, I will make them love me, and I will ensure that, they will, offer what they don't have. So I would say when we are in a situation with people who cannot love themselves enough, you cannot do anything about it. You need to step back, move out, and that is just going to be more difficult and challenging for you, because you cannot teach someone to love themselves.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Hemalatha. I really enjoyed this conversation. And Excuse me. And thank you for bringing your authentic self and sharing this experience with everybody. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.